G'day ladies and gentlemen, it's Brendon O'Connell, the Bell Tower Boy, live from, well not really live, Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. It is the 4th of January 2018 and yes, I made it back alive from New Zealand. I'll touch on that briefly. I've been very sick. I've done an interview with Dr. Kevin Barrett and I did an interview with Daniel Walker of Activist News Australia. I was lucky to do anything at all. I was feeling that ill, but anyway, after the 2-week hunger strike didn't do me too much good in New Zealand. I just want to round it off by saying I am entering into a private discussion with the relevant minister on what went on in New Zealand. Suffice to say, New Zealand is not my enemy, nor is New Zealand your enemy. New Zealand is the enemy of Israel, as Benjamin Netanyahu so eloquently said not that long ago that New Zealand had declared war on Israel with its stand in the United Nations. God bless New Zealand and all who sail on it. 4 million people. It's got a few things to fix, isolated down there in the South Pacific, most notably its prison system. Number one, bad. And number two, you don't lock up asylum seekers in high security prisons. Nobody does it except you, New Zealand. And how you've been getting away with this, I don't know. We'll leave it at that. God willing, the new government of Jacinda Ardern, a very Democrat style, it's a Labor government, socialist type government, will be dedicating itself to other social justice issues other than gay rights and transgender rights, which seems to be its forte.
Oh, gay. Actually, Nigel, that's not gay at all. It's deeply disappointing, but it's not gay.
Hey?
Look, bro, unless that pie is a man who loves another man, then it's not gay.
Or a woman who loves another woman.
Thank you, Muzza. Steve's gay.
Steve's not gay. Steve, you're not gay, are you?
Quite gay.
And move into other rights as well, more than equally deserving. Okay, New Zealand, I know you can do it. And thank God for Lord young Ella, 21 years old, who told Israel to go to hell. She would not play, the pop star law will not play in Israel. It just so happens that the gentleman who invited me down, Chris, a very well-connected man, 70 years old, is very good friends with Ella's auntie and was screaming to her auntie about me. And, you know, coincidence maybe, at the same time she doesn't go to Israel. Who knows? It's a nice thought anyway. It's my fantasy and I'm entitled to it. What is this about? I put the title of this is Benjamin Netanyahu, the most powerful man in the world. And alternatively, is Vladimir Putin getting up there too? Of course, Putin is the rock star for many, but I think it's time you stop giving money to people who are lying to you. Let's host straight into the strong relationship between Benjamin Netanyahu and Vladimir Putin and quit the garbage that Putin is in the Middle East for anything other than to service the new China-led City of London One Belt One Road project, which will have a port sitting in the Mediterranean in the current state of Israel, coincidentally. Let's get stuck into some articles. You will of course remember a video I did a few months back, 6 months ago, called Russia and Israel Steal US Tech, Tel Aviv Booms. Yes, Benjamin Netanyahu under the Telpiot program, which many say is irrelevant, which is exactly the way Israel rules, is of course stealing US high technology and giving it to Vladimir Putin. Vladimir Putin also then hands it on to elements of Iran, and of course China and India are in there too, and we'll talk about that in a second. The fact that Israel continues to shaft the United States, and in the articles to follow, basically give the finger like this, the bird, to the United States, saying, we don't have you anymore, we're going to team up with Putin, and we're going to run the Middle East with him. And all the while, the Putin group is just screaming how wonderful it is. I used to be a Putin groupie. Just by simple logic and looking at all the available information, I'll show you that both Putin and Patriarch Kirill of the Russian Orthodox Church are nothing but KGB agents in new garb, playing the game, sons of the City of London, working together. Putin, Trump and Netanyahu, and now China and India are on board in the huge One Belt One Road project with an immediate payout of $100 billion US going into immediate infrastructure, but it will run into the trillions. And this is what Israel is seeking to dominate. So here are some news articles. Let's talk about them right now. Here are some of my favourites. Here from an article from The Week, a sort of a Breitbart, but based in the UK. Why Russia should take over Israel's defence from America. Let's talk. For moral, historic and strategic reasons, the United States has Israel's back. Israel is the top recipient of US foreign aid and it has access to top-flight US weapons. Yes, its neighbours could only dream of, and that's the Telpiot program. Probably most importantly, the US, the world's sole superpower, is known as Israel's chief defender both militarily and at the United Nations. Making sure Israel is safe is a sacred, bipartisan, inviolable cornerstone of American foreign policy. But is it really so important that America be the nation that provides the protection? Cutting straight to the chase, the obvious choice is Russia. Russia isn't the global superpower it used to be, but it's no slouch. Russian President Vladimir Putin's driving goal seems to be making Russia great again, feared or respected on the world stage, and that has involved putting ample resources towards building the country's military might on top of its large arsenal of nuclear missiles. If Russia signed on, Israel could be assured of advanced weapons and enough nuclear backup to scare the daylights out of even the most hostile nation or non-state group. There are lots of reasons for the improved ties between Russia and Israel, but key among them is the fact that Israel has become increasingly Russian in the past 20 years. Many of these million or so members of the ex-Soviet diaspora will speak Russian, hang out with other Russian emigres, read Russian language newspapers, and frequent businesses that cater to Russian Israelis. About a third of them, 300,000, are considered Jewish by Israel's law of return, meaning they have at least one Jewish grandparent, but not by Israeli religious authorities, meaning they can't get married or buried in Israel, even though they are citizens. Putin and Israel's government also share a hardline stance. Now listen to this. Putin and Israel's government also share a hardline stance towards Islamic insurgencies and terrorism. Russia has been considered relatively pro-Palestinian, but Putin is notably more sympathetic to Israel's Palestinian crackdowns than his predecessors. Similarly, Israel declined to join the US and Europe in criticising Putin's harsh crackdown on Chechen Muslim militants, even though his incursions into Georgia and Ukraine. Is that enough to convince Russia to become Israel's patron? Perhaps not, but there are other incentives, chief among them money and prestige. Putin desperately wants Russia to be a world power again, to be consequential and at the centre of global decisions. The country that protects Israel is guaranteed a seat at the table when it comes to many of the biggest, most high-profile challenges in the global arena. Extending protection to Israel makes as much or more sense than hosting the Winter Olympics in a temperate Black Sea resort town or, allegedly, bribing its way to hosting the World Cup. Financially, Russia is struggling with the low oil prices and Western sanctions, and it's keenly looking for new markets for its armaments. Israel is a generous customer with a large defence budget. Let me tell you, the weapons are going one way though. Israel doesn't need anything from Russia, technologically speaking. Israel's got all the hot stuff, straight out of DARPA. Cutting straight to the chase in this article, read it yourself. And while Russia hasn't been a very active player in the Israeli-Palestinian peace talks, the US seems to have run out of steam as lead intermediary. Perhaps Moscow, given its historical support for the Palestinians, would be viewed by both sides as an honest broker. Barring that, listen to this, Israel could at least have a freer hand, i.e. kill more Muslim men, women and children, to intervene militarily in the Palestinian territories without concern that its main global patron would criticise it on human rights grounds. Geez, you've got to love that passage. Finally, Israel and the US have a long, close friendship. But as the band Chicago says, everybody needs a little time away. There's no need to consciously uncouple entirely. Russia and Israel are already friendly, at least in a casual way, and the US wouldn't become Israel's enemy. But if anyone would benefit from a Middle East alignment, there's no need to stay together for nostalgia's sake. US policy on Israel has been remarkably steady for decades, but it isn't carved in a stone tablets. Thanks for coming. And speaking of that massive immigration of Russian Jews, most of whom aren't even Jewish, I might add, don't even qualify remotely under the law of return under Jewish halakha, religious law, let's quickly go here to this, one of my favourite articles, all the way back from 2011, 17th of August 2011, from the Guardian newspaper. Listen to this. Israel's former Soviet immigrants transform adopted country. Russian-speaking Jews who arrived over the past 20 years had integrated little, but influenced everything from culture to politics. I urge you to read that article in its entirety. Every single paragraph is important. But what's it basically saying? It's basically saying that Russian Jews, or Russians pretending to be Jews, have taken over Israeli politics, the Israeli high technology sector. And of course now the US, as Lockheed, have kindly landed the F-35 stealth fighter directly into the hands of Russian technicians who dominate the high technology sector. So why don't you just land the damn thing in Red Square? Because that's what you've done with Israel. And that's an important point to take up with your local congressman. I urge you to ring up the Department of Homeland Security or leave an email stating that US high tech is now in the hands of Russia. That technology will then be transferred to places like communist China. All right. Remember that one. So I urge you to read that article in its entirety. It's an incredible article. Israel's former Soviet immigrants transform adopted country. How about this from 22nd of January 2015? Borscht Belt. These are all new online Jewish journals for Jews, written by Jews for Jews. Borscht Belt. Will Israel spurn America for Russia? For most of last year, the West struggled to find a Anyway, go and read it yourself. I'm not going to read it. Borscht Belt. Will Israel spurn America for Russia? Article after article after article detailing how Netanyahu is getting into bed with Putin. The man who's going to save the Middle East. Give me a break. Come on, I can't believe we're still having this debate. Here's one of my favourites from July 10th, 2017. Israel and the unexpected New World Order. Geographically, Israel is just off centre. Why then is it treated with such respect? Well, that's the Telpiot program. They've kill switched everyone, but anyway. Especially by the likes of Russia and China. Hello? Hello? Go and read that entire article. It's talking about the One Belt, One Road project to do with China, how it's going to run through into Israel, how Israel will be supplying most of the high technology. Go and read it. If this doesn't get you angry, remember Trump? Best mates with Netanyahu. Trump is going to save American industry. That Trump. Have a look at this one. In Beijing, Netanyahu looks to marry Israel's technology with China's capacity. You can't make this stuff up. Go and read it. I'm not going to read it. Go and read it. Basically, they're bragging massive technology transfers to China. Remember Alex Jones? The Communist Chinese. We're going to fight the Communist Chinese. Well, Alex, your best mate, Donald Trump, is in bed with Netanyahu, who's in bed with Putin, who's in bed with Communist China. How do you work that one out?
Speaking of worse by the minute, Communist China is absolutely allied with the left and many globalists in this country. And they are now militarily expanding all over the world. They've got 97% of rare earth minerals that we've just strategically let them have, the Panama Canal. This has all been the globalist sellout of the country. And joining us, published by Regnery, is Stephen W. Mosier, Bully of Asia, the new book. And, of course, he's one of the top journalists and experts on China, highly recognized out there, pop.org. I'm not going to go over his whole, to get into just China, their stance, what they're doing, what the mindset is of the communist authoritarian regime that controls 1,300,000,000 people. So thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Alex. The global elitists want us to go quietly into that good night. They want to use Chinese serfs, Chinese slave labor to produce cheap goods, which they import into this country. And, of course, millions of American workers have been unemployed as a result. But the point I want to make, and in fact the point I make in Bully of Asia, is this is all part of an effort concerted with and, in fact, in many ways led by the People's Republic of China. People need to understand in the United States that China declared war on us back in 1991. Now, you didn't hear about this, but you're hearing about it now. And what I mean by that is when the Soviet Union collapsed, Deng Xiaoping said to his comrades, the old Cold War is over, America won, but the new Cold War is now beginning between China and America, and China, the Middle Kingdom, is going to win this one and become the dominant power on the planet.
And they admit it's economic. I mean, you're the expert, but they even said then we're going to flood them with bad drugs, legal drugs, prescription drugs, opiates, stuff 10 times stronger than Oxycontin. They brag about what they're doing, and they found lots of accomplices in our government.
Well, they did. I mean, China's been at war with us ever since. They've been stealing our intellectual property, stealing our factories and jobs, opposing us internationally, warring against us in cyberspace, making these amazing territorial claims to the South China Sea. In a saner time, claiming the entire South China Sea would be an act of war. And we went to the Hague Tribunal and said, tell China to stop. And the Hague Tribunal said, stop. And Xi Jinping, the new Red Emperor of China, Xi Jinping, the president of China, the head of the military, the head of the Chinese Communist Party, says the Hague Tribunal's ruling on the South China Sea is nothing more than waste paper, toilet paper. And that's how China regards all international law. They are not going to be bound by the current international system. They're going to violate it in every way they can to profit themselves. That's what's been happening for the last 20 years. And finally, at long last, I think we have a president who understands this and is willing to seriously take on China. I think that's good for America, and it'll be good for our future if we can simply carry out his policies.
That's all the American taxpayer high technology money, $600 billion plus a year, probably closer to $1 trillion in the black budget. That's all your technology being handed by Benjamin Netanyahu to your economic and military competitors. Are you angry yet down at the Pentagon, Marine headquarters? Anybody? Hello? Here's another one. China's tech money heads for Israel as US welcome wanes. Yeah, again, go and read it. Just go and read it. I'm not going to stand here reading it. Go and have a read. Putin lovers. Putin's going to save us. Putin's a friend of the United States. You know, and let's not forget India. India, Israel expand cooperation from defence to science, agriculture and technology. They're not just doing it with India, they're doing it with everybody, including Australia. You name it, Asia Pacific, and even, would you believe, New Zealand. But I've been getting some very good response from ministers in charge of the intelligence community there and the Minister for Defence. After the bear hug, 7 deals signed by PM Modi and Israel. That's the Prime Minister of India. Go and read it. This is all to do with the One Belt, One Road, and I'm going to end very briefly for all you Putin groupies. Igor Sechin, head of Rosneft, is powerful as never before. Go and read it. Basically, that's Putin's best buddy, another Russian Jew oligarch. They're all the same oligarchs, different face, same procedure, all in bed with Netanyahu, completely taken over the Middle East. Remember this warning by a Russian commentator? This is from Putin's Russia, the documentary from 2008.
И более того, мы развиваем свой ядерный комплекс сдерживания. Как вы знаете, недавно провели испытания новых систем баллистического оружия. В позапрошлом году успешно проведены испытания таких боевых комплексов, которых пока нет, и вряд ли раньше нас появятся на вооружении других стран мира.
We could see the world in 5 or 10 years when the Middle East is dominated by Iran, with Russia in background. When Americans are pushed out, humiliated, kicked.
There you go. And what's happened? That was 2008, we're now in 2018. 10 years later, and look what's happened. When are you going to work it out? Stop giving money to people who are lying to you. And I'm talking about those big players out there who are lying. They are worshipping Putin. I Googled these articles. These articles are 6 months old. I Googled them in 15 minutes flat. 15 minutes flat. They're everywhere. Go and have a look. Just Google Israel, Netanyahu, Putin, contracts, friendship, Israel, Russia, contracts. You'll find them. They're completely taken over the oil and gas industry. And on and on and on and on and on. Okay, that should wet your whistle. Thanks to Nick, Spiro and others. You should also watch these interviews I did with Nick. They go into this in detail. Some reasonably high production values. We put a lot of effort into those. Thanks to John and a whole bunch of other people, James and Joseph. There's a lot of people that are getting links. And what I want to start to do is to do some professional level productions with voiceovers with a whole host of people. But if you are a blind as a bat Putin worshipper, you're not going to like what we have to say, nor should you. And I urge you to stop giving money to people who lie to you. Stop it. These people are lying through their teeth and are refusing to report on these matters. They're more worried about their Iran Press TV and Russia Today appearances than they are about the truth. The Talpiot program is the key to Israel's success. There have been some commentators, some very slow retards, continue to say, it's no secret. Let me tell you, when I raised the issue, starting in 2005 to do with Israeli intelligence activity, and then in 2007, specifically the Talpiot program after reading this article on the Info Underground, via the Talpiot program. And to prove it to you, do one simple thing. Google Rad Group, R-A-D, Rad Group, under Zohar, Z-O-H-A-R, Zisapel, Z-I-S-A-P-E-L. One company out of 30 all started up under the Talpiot program, Israeli military intelligence, which now dominate the planet's banking and financial database sector and security, dominate government VoIP encryption and security, Class A infrastructure security. They dominate encryption services for special forces, radio and communication systems. They dominate, you name it, telecom databases. I mean, dear God, that's one One out of approximately 30 companies. You've got Variant, Amdocs, Converse, Infosys, P-Tech, MIDA, all intimately involved with the work of Christopher Bolin in bringing down the World Trade Center in the 9/11 attacks, and Benjamin Netanyahu. Benjamin Netanyahu, these are his friends. Benjamin Netanyahu has his finger on the button. All right, this guy's special forces friends are now all there in top positions. They're running the Talpiot program. Okay, these are the guys that have their fingers on the trigger, on the buttons, on the kill squads, on the surveillance, whether it's Homeland Security, private security contracts, Unit 8200. And to be honest, why do you need a cyber warfare division when it's all your equipment in the system anyway? The kill switches, as espoused by Edward Snowden, have little to do with the United States and much more to do with Israel. This is why Israel wields so much power via the Talpiot program and the kill switch technology, as he says about Japan. Remember this from the movie Snowden by Oliver Stone?
They were not as thrilled to learn that we wanted them to help us spy on the Japanese population. They said it was against their laws. Of course, we tapped the entire country anyway. And we didn't stop there, because once we owned their communication system, we started going after their physical infrastructure. We'd slip these little sleeper programs into power grids, dams, hospitals, and the idea was, if the day came when Japan was no longer an ally, it'd be lights out. And it wasn't just the Japanese. We were planning malware in Mexico, Germany, Brazil, Austria. I mean, China, I can understand, or Russia, or Iran, or Venezuela, okay, but Austria?
Okay, that's Israel. That's why it gets away with what they get away with. And the sooner people get on with it and start realising that Putin is working with Netanyahu, we don't care why. We don't care why. If he's a Russian nationalist who just wants to improve the economy, we don't care why. He's working with them. He's no friend of Muslims. He's no friend of the Middle East. And he will backstab Iran tomorrow. Now, Putin has the excuse to be in the Middle East entirely. The Gulf states, who everyone is bagging non-stop. Yes, there's problems in the Gulf states and Saudi, obviously. What choice did they have? Excuse me, what's Iran's excuse? All Saudi Arabia has to do is look at Iraq and know that's its fate if it doesn't shut its mouth and do as it's told. That's the fate of Saudi Arabia. I'm not sure what Iran's excuse is, but Saudi Arabia is what, 500 miles from Tel Aviv? It's a little bit of a worry for them. And let us remember that it's Saudi Arabian money that rebuilds the hospitals in Gaza. It's Saudi Arabian and Gulf state money that rebuilds southern Lebanon. Iran ain't giving a damn cent to those places. It feeds $5 billion US a year into Hezbollah and the Shia militias. And Hezbollah recently, and Hassan Nasrallah very kindly said, we have new weapons and we're going to blow up, they're very accurate, we're going to blow up the ammonia plants in Israel and kill thousands. Oh, that's a really smart move. Well, I'm afraid Hezbollah is going to find out the power of high technology standoff weaponry and air supremacy that Israel has. Hamas is going to be decimated probably in the Gaza Strip. They have to do the Gaza Strip soon. Any day. Whenever they can get the excuse, they have to cleanse the Gaza Strip. It's a thorn in their flesh. There's going to be no two-state solution. We all know this. We all know this. And the West Bank is finished. It's totally finished. And Putin is not going to lift a damned finger when Iran is chased back across the Euphrates. Just wait for it. This whole Iran revolution is garbage. There is no revolution. It's just a way of distracting the Iranian government and getting people to ask, why are you spending $5 billion US over there in your little campaign against Israel? Wouldn't it be better to host less weaponry and have it giving us some money? Because it's going to be Australians and Europeans and British people and the United States English speakers who are going to win this war. The best the Middle East can do is a holding action. It's up to us to make our governments and lobby our governments to stop supporting the racist apartheid state of Israel. That it's got such foul religious doctrines. Remember, it's the Jewish state, it's not the Zionist state, it's the Jewish state where you may only ascend or make aliyah under Jewish halakha or Jewish religious law, which is very corrupt to begin with. In fact, so much so that we now find that Russian immigrants who have no claim to be Jews whatsoever are being allowed into the country due to their high technology qualifications. There's a lot to go into. This is just a brief overview. It's a brief way for me to say hello. Yeah, I'm alive and well and back in Malaysia. Thank God for Malaysia. Thank you to the Royal Malaysian Police. That's the equivalent of FBI. Interviewed me at the airport. I gave them a pile of material. They said, Mr. O'Connell, you're welcome in Malaysia. Relax. After the Australian Federal Police gave them a little spiel about me. Thank you to the AFP. God bless New Zealand and its continuing struggle against the racist apartheid state of Israel. Thank you to the police and prison officers, wonderful people, the lower echelons of Immigration New Zealand and security who supported me and said, I know, Brendon, I know, they're messing with you basically, make a complaint. I assure you that some very bad things went on, but hopefully they'll be sorted out quietly and we'll see New Zealand reform its immigration system and we'll see them putting people in proper immigration detention centres, not in high security prisons where you can't get a damn thing done. You can't even access the internet, you can't access your papers in effect, you can't access a word processor like you can even in an Australian detention centre. So New Zealand's got quite a bit of work to do. And of course then there's the issue of the 400 grams of cocaine flogged right in front of me on camera by the Brazilian man, Portuguese national. We're going to go into that as well. There is an investigation mounted and God willing New Zealand will, again, I'll happily leave that alone and move on. I'm going to assume that New Zealand is, as they reported to me in an email, they are taking those allegations very seriously. Wow, it's always an adventure. I wish it could be normal. I wish it could just be, but it never is. Anyway, I've got to move on. I've got to get a life. I have to try and get a job. I have to get a work visa. These are the things I have to do. I want to make it less about me and more about some high quality productions, liaising with people, professional voiceovers, getting professional, no swearing, no carry on, no more fighting. It's just, we'll do the business. Nick and many other people who you're aware of, we're going to do the business. We're not worried about Press TV appearances or Russia Today appearances to maintain our online presence or maintain our profile so we get people sending us money. We're just going to keep telling the truth. I'm getting now nearly 9,000 subscribers. If I can stay online for a while, I expect I'll have 20,000 plus in the times to come. And we're going to do some really professional stuff. Ciao for now. Hold Hafez. God bless the ordinary people of Iran, the people who are fighting, the well-intentioned people. May Sunni and Shias come together in peace. May the Middle East come together in peace. May Jews, Christians and Muslims come together in peace and be able to visit the holy sites of occupied Palestine and come together at the cafes by the sea, relax. May families be able to enjoy themselves and not feel threatened by bombs and drones. And God help us if indeed Netanyahu gets his wish of marrying Israeli high technology, artificial intelligence and robotics with China's capacity. God help us all. I'll leave you now from the movie RoboCop. This is the future. This is the future. Here's Samuel L. Jackson, the Fox News reporter wannabe, telling us about how robots are being used in Iran in the movie RoboCop and how they were destined for the United States. God help us. Artificial intelligence program from Yeshiva Military Academy students working in Unit 8200 in the Israeli Defense Force and military intelligence Telpiot programs married with robotics. God help the Goyim. God help us. Military robots programmed by those racist, psychotic lunatics. Pray God, we're going to see peace in the Middle East within our time. I don't know what the future holds. Let's keep fighting. God bless you all. Hold our Hafez and peace. Just peace.
Ma 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 ma.
3, 2, 1.
What if I told you that even the worst neighborhood in America could be made completely safe? And what if I told you that this could be accomplished without risking the life of one single law enforcement officer? How do I know this? Because it's happening right now in every country in the world but this one. It is great to see American machines helping to promote peace and freedom abroad.
All right, you guys, this is a standard on, all right? There's no opposition expected. I'm gonna set your markers to code red. All our drones are gonna give top priority to your safety. No red assets have ever been lost.
Okay.
Okay?
Does that make you feel better?
But listen, keep those bracelets on, you're completely safe. Okay? Good. Enjoy the show. All right, let's go.
May peace be upon you. Please exit your homes with your arms raised. For a non-invasive scanning procedure, no one will be harmed. Please exit your homes with your arms raised. For a non-invasive scanning procedure, no one will be harmed. Off the ground, all victims.
Scott, get me a shot of this.
cooperation is appreciated. We apologize for any inconvenience. On the ground of the government, peace be upon you.
Incredible. Incredible. Not long ago, that would have been American men and women risking their lives to pacify these people. General, you care to comment on this?
Well, Pat, we had Vietnam, we had Iraq, we had Afghanistan. Never again. From a military perspective, this has been invaluable. We can accomplish our objectives without any loss to American lives, and I think the honest people over there really appreciate it.
And why wouldn't they? For the first time in their lives, they get to watch their children grow up in an environment of safety and security.
Can you hear me out there?
Loud and clear, Pat. I'm here in sunny Tehran, where locals have clearly embraced these routine scans. As you can see behind me, they're working in collaboration with the robots, and obviously, their safety is everyone's top priority. You'll notice children in the streets as well. This is everyday life happening in perfect harmony.
Oh, great. Here, stay put. It's fine. Don't worry. My guy's got it.
Drop your weapon.
Kelly, are you all right? Kelly!
We're okay, Pat. Our robots have just repelled some suicide bombers, but
I'm sorry, Kelly, but for security reasons, the Pentagon's going to cut our feed to Tehran. But please, be careful.
Yeah, I'll continue to stand by.
Now you see how fundamental these robots are to our foreign policy. So then tell me, why can't we use these machines here at home? Why is America so robophobic? On the one hand, we have Raymond Sellers, an entrepreneur and true American whose product just saved my colleague's life. And on the other, Hubert Dreyfus, a man with both feet planted firmly in the past, whose bill prohibits the use of drones on U.S. soil. The American people support the Dreyfus Act because they haven't experienced this technology and they fear what they don't understand. We at the Novak Element support Mr. Sellers' efforts to make our country and our viewers safer. After all, what's more important than the safety of the American people?